We're going to make a pork dish for dinner tomorrow, actually, so you have to start it the night before. And it's such an easy dish to make. And it's basically a version of David Chang's Momofuku roast pork in the oven. But we're going to do it in a slow cooker, so you're pretty much hands off until the end when you're getting all the little things that need to go with it. So first of all, you're going to need a cut of meat, which is called pork shoulder. We call it pork shoulder here. And I've opened it up a little bit so that we can get the marinade in or the brining in. So what we're going to do is, after you have your pork shoulder, put it in a bowl. And you'll need to marinate it overnight with a 1/3 cup of kosher salt and a 1/3 cup of sugar. So let me go ahead and measure those out. 1/3 cup of white sugar. Let me move it over here. And then you'll need a 1/3 cup of kosher salt. I'm actually running low on kosher salt, so if I need to supplement, I'll use my sea salt. Okay, and about a 1/3 cup of the salt. So what you'll do is you'll just mix it together. And then you'll put it all over this pork shoulder. And you're probably thinking, wow, that's going to be a lot of salt. But tomorrow, before we put it into our slow cooker, you actually need to rinse it off. If you don't rinse it off, then yes, it will definitely be too salty. And the reason I know is because the first time I made it, I think I saw this recipe in a newspaper article. First time I did it, they did not say rinse it off, and it was way too salty. And I will also open it up and put some inside the middle. And if your pork shoulder comes without like a slit in the middle, then you go ahead and cut it open, because it'll just cook easier also in the slow cooker, and then you can make sure that it's the seasoning goes all over. I'm just going to pour the rest of it over. And it looks like a lot, but you're going to be washing most of it off anyways. And then cover it and let it sit overnight in the fridge. And take it out. If you want to eat, it'll have to be in the slow cooker for about 9 to 10 hours, minimum 9 hours. So I usually start at about 8:30 in the morning to eat around 6. But that's it. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. So now it's the next morning, and we've had our pork shoulder in the fridge for about 11 hours, 10 hours or so. So what you need to do the next morning is you're going to rinse off all that brine that we put on the pork shoulder. So I just like to bring it over to the sink, turn on the water, and basically just rinse it off. And you want to give it a pretty good rinse because, you know, we put on a lot of sugar and salt on it. So, and I'll go ahead and rinse the inside a little bit too. And after you finish rinsing it, you actually don't need to dry it off or anything. Just maybe drip a little water off and then just put it into your crock pot. Okay, I have the pork shoulder roast in my crock pot. If you have between a 4 and 5 pound pork shoulder, you're actually going to need a larger size crock pot. I think my crock pot is I believe a 6-quart or 5-quart crock pot. And all you need to do is put the cover on, and you want to set the timer to, since I know I want to cook it for about 9 to 10 hours, I'm setting it to 10 hours. So it's like a lower heat. You don't want to set it to 6 or 4 because that'll be too strong. So basically, we'll be back like about 5:30ish if you eat at 6, and I'll show you all the rest of the stuff that goes with it. Okay, along with the pork shoulder that we have cooking in our slow cooker, there's going to be a dipping sauce that goes with it. So let me show you guys how to make the dipping sauce. What I have here is about 1.5 bunches of green onions, And we need to cut those up into smaller pieces. Basically, you're going to be mincing your green onions. And I use both the white parts as well as all the green parts. So for the thicker parts, I like to cut them in half. I use about a bunch and a half of green onions. So I think that was approximately maybe 10 onions, 10 green onions or 12. And the reason that I like to make so much sauce is that I'll have a lot of leftovers with that 4.5, 5-pound piece of pork. So the next day, I like to make kimchi fried rice. And I use the sauce in that rice, which gives it a nice flavor. So it never hurts to have extra sauce. You know, actually, when you're cutting up these green onions, I've been cutting off the ends, but cut them a little higher. You can actually put them in a glass of water, and you will get new green onions. But I don't do that. Maybe I will in the spring when I can plant them outside. But right now it's winter here. So sorry, green onion tips. Won't be using you. Okay, so here's all my green onions. They're all cut. Another thing that I do is I will go ahead and put some ginger in it. Let me move this out of the way. And I usually like to peel the skin of the ginger off. And I'll need about a large, I'd say, quarter size piece or 1.25 size piece. Okay, so I like to use a microplane to finely grate my ginger into my sauce. Now, if you don't have a microplane, you can just finely mince your ginger. I think that should work fine. And you can put more ginger in, but my family doesn't like to have a huge, ginger taste in the sauce, so I don't. Let's see. So I still have a little bit more to grate. I think I'm going to put a little bit more in. And let me show you what it looks like. So for me, this looks like enough ginger to go with this amount of green onions. Okay, so one of the next things that you put into this sauce is I will put in some vegetable oil. I'm using here just a neutral tasting oil like avocado oil, canola oil, but not olive oil. And I put 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil in, and then equal amount of soy sauce, or maybe more. I'll do a little tasting after. So 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. I'm going to say 3. 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, so a little bit more than the amount of vegetable oil. And this is number 3. And then I also like to have a little bit of a sweet sour taste in here. So this is seasoned rice vinegar, which has a little sugar in it. So I'll put in probably about 1 teaspoon. Okay. And then I will also put in some red vinegar. 1 teaspoon. And the last thing that you need to put in is some salt. So I like to put in some kosher salt, and I will put in 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. Okay, let's give this a mix and see how it turns out. After I make this sauce, I do let it sit for a little bit in the fridge to let all the flavors marinate in there. Okay, I think it needs to be just a little bit more sour. So I am going to put in another half teaspoon of the red vinegar. Okay, you can already see that after I put in all the sauces, the green onions are kind of wilting and reducing itself. But here, let's take another taste. But I think it should be good. Okay, that's good. So let me put this in the fridge, and then we'll plate up everything later. Okay, we're near the end of our dish. And the last thing that we need to do is make a little topping for the meat also. So that is going to consist of a quarter cup of brown sugar and 1 teaspoon of fine salt. So not kosher salt, but a fine grain salt. And a small teaspoon, I wouldn't say a big one. So after you have those ingredients, you're going to mix it up. And this is what we're going to put on top of our meat and then toast it or broil it for a little bit in the oven or in your toaster oven. I always use my toaster oven because it's nice and quick. So this is pretty much ready to go. It's all mixed up. And let me turn on my toaster oven. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move my rack to the top. And for some reason my toaster oven, the broiler doesn't work. So I'm going to go ahead and just put it on toast. And I'm going to go ahead and start it and get it started to heat up. So we're going to come over here and turn off our pork, which has been cooking in the slow cooker. And it's pretty much got a boil. I mean, it's got a slow simmer, and you can see how easily it falls apart. So I'm going to take this meat and put it on this pan. Separate it a little bit. And if you have a bone in your pork shoulder, just take the meat off from around the bone. If you want to, during your cooking process, like the halfway mark, I have this in the slow cooker for about, I say close to 10 hours now. So around 5 hours, just go ahead and flip it. Okay, so you're basically taking the pork out and you're spreading it on an even layer on your pan. And if you want to, you can put an aluminum foil under there. Oops, one more. So what you have now is I will go ahead and I take this mixture of the salt and brown sugar. I just sprinkle it over the meat. And once you broil it, the sugar should melt a little bit and then just give extra flavor. If it's kind of hard to do with a spoon, then just use your fingers and put it over the meat like this. Each piece has just a little bit. You don't want like a whole big layer. Let's see. Okay, and that looks about good. I'm not going to use up all the mixture because I don't think I need to. So now we're going to pop this in the oven, which has been heating up. And then we'll just keep an eye on it. But the sugar should start melting, and then it'll get a little crusty on the meat, and then that's when you know that it's ready to eat. Okay, I'm going to go see if my pork is ready. It's only been about 4 minutes, I believe. So let's take a look. Turn the light on so we can see. Basically, I want most of the sugar melted. Okay, so not all the sugar is melted. So let me just go ahead and toast it again for a little bit. So a little bit more than 4 minutes. Okay, let me take a quick peek and see if the meat's ready. Okay, I think that's good enough. Okay, it's good enough. Okay, let me just turn off the toaster oven. And I'll show you guys how we eat it. It's sizzling, and most of the brown sugar is melted, except for one big chunk there, but that's okay. Okay, so basically what we do is you want to have some lettuce leaves. I'm using romaine here, but you could use